Hey folks, welcome back to Words of Wisdom. Today's episode, I'm hoping, is going to blow your mind a little bit, or at least help you to make a hell of a lot more money. And what I'm talking about is about your nervous system and how that's deciding how much income you make. And I'm not going to get all sciencey or anything on you, so don't worry about that. I'm not a neuroscientist. I'm just a female in business who has, learned how to regulate my nervous system, but how that's also impacting my performance, my income. And I suppose I got to a point in realizing that mindset wasn't just enough and discipline wasn't just enough either. I had to get myself on that frequency. The game changer was understanding my nervous system. And it's so mad because just as we're recording this podcast today, I'm in Dublin. I've done a full day of training in Dublin and coaching. And I actually just said to Zoe, who does all my podcast editing and all that sort of stuff, I said to her, I says, I don't feel, this is the right time for me to do a pod. I'm doing it now because we need to get this out this week. But in my head, I'm going, but it comes back to like my nervous system and stuff. But because a lot of my energy has been drained from coaching all day, I feel now that I can feel my body a little bit dysregulated. So now what I'm going to do after this, I'm going to double down on the stuff that I'm talking about here, going out doing some grounding, focusing on the wins and stuff like that there. But the reason I just share that with you, and I'm vulnerable in relation to that right now as we record this, is because it's really, really important to be aware how your nervous system can impact your performance, but also your income. Hey, welcome to Wow Words of Wisdom. This is the podcast where we talk about all things mindset, all things confidence, and taking action, even when it feels scary. I'm Sharon McCaffrey, and if there's one thing I know for sure, it's this. Your mindset shapes everything. The way you think, the way you show up, the way you go after what you really want, and it all starts in your head. So if you've ever felt stuck, doubted yourself, or wondered if you're really capable of more, you're in the right place. Each week, let's break through those mental blocks, shift your perspective, and start making things happen. I need you to know that it's not, mindset just isn't enough, and discipline, isn't enough either. But one of the game changers for me is actually understanding my nervous system and how that works. The first thing is I want you to understand why your nervous system actually matters. So I want you to think of your nervous system a little bit like it's almost like your body's internal security guard. Its job is to keep you safe, not happy, not wealthy, just safe. And the thing is, if your nervous system doesn't feel safe with money, if it doesn't feel safe with success or visibility, it's going to sabotage it. But it's going to do it quietly, and it's going to do it subconsciously. It'll be things like, you'll ghost your business. You'll not turn up and you'll make excuses, or maybe you'll procrastinate and put things off, or you'll undercharge, or maybe you just take the safe job in opposed to actually following your heart in that dream career that you want. It's a little bit like a thermostat. You might say that you want to earn 10 grand a month, but your nervous system is set to 2 grand, and because that's what you're familiar with. And the moment you go past that, then it kicks in and it's like pulling you right back down. What I need you to understand that about your nervous system is that you've got this like fight, flight, or freeze mechanism, and those are like your stress responses. And these aren't just about like danger. They get triggered by anything unfamiliar. And for many of us, especially, if we grow up here, money doesn't grow on trees, or money is the root of all evil, then wealth is unfamiliar. So if you look at fight, you hustle like nonstop, but you're always chasing and it's never enough. The flight is that you keep changing maybe careers, or you keep changing niche, or you're running from structure. The freeze, you can't make decisions. So you scroll, you plan, you overthink. I remember when I look back years ago, I remember, when I was in business and first, and you'd be looking for leads and customers and stuff like that. But I'd also be praying that people wouldn't, answer. But in my head, I'm going I'm in sales, but please don't answer, and please don't, sign up. And, I remember doing workshops online back at the beginning of, my coaching career and stuff. Subconsciously in the back of my mind, I'd be thinking I'd be hoping that nobody would turn up, and I'd almost be relieved that nobody, there were a few people on. But then also in my head, I'm going why? Because I actually need people to, turn up. I think a lot of it comes down to it's rejection, because being rejected will, activates that freeze. And it wasn't anything to do with the job, but it was my nervous system saying danger, because it didn't feel safe, because rejection doesn't feel safe. And I think what can happen is like this income roller coaster, but it happens because of our nervous system. So it's about learning how to like regulate it. So what happens is, maybe you make a big sale, then you panic, or, every time your bank account grows, you find a way to spend it, or you suddenly feel drained and you need a break, or you think, oh, I need a new strategy, but like you just need a new set point. So I know for me, once I started working with my nervous system instead of against it, like a lot of things started to change in my mind. So what I done and what I want to talk about is training your body to feel safe with more, and why more doesn't always feel safe. The reason it doesn't always feel safe is because your brain loves familiarity, not freedom. So even if you consciously want more, your body might see it as a threat. So more money, you see the threat as more responsibility. More visibility, like maybe online and stuff. Well, now there's more chance of judgment. More clients, more chance to fail. So you'll subconsciously block it. It's like revving your car, while slamming on the brakes at the same time. I suppose what it's a little bit like, it's like going to a personal trainer when your muscles are weak. You can want to lift the weight, but if your nervous system's not ready, it'll drop it. Well, it's the same with money. You've got to train for it. So how do you train your nervous system to receive? And I suppose this is where it gets a little bit juicy. You can train your nervous system to feel safe with success, like building emotional muscle memory. So here's how you do it. The first thing is like awareness. Notice when you contract around money, right? So when you get small around it, pay attention to your body language, pay attention to your thoughts. Are you microdosing wealth? So start small, receive without guilt, treat yourself and breathe. You want to regulate daily. So stuff like that I'm always doing every day is like breath work, getting out in nature. Like I even bought myself like a grounding mat just so that I can like ground myself. Cold showers, about your thing, that's not my thing, so it's not, but that can be very grounding for a lot of people, very good for the nervous system. I prefer red light, so I will do like red light sauna. What these actually do is these help reset your stress response. And then the other thing you want to do is like, visualization or imagery practice. Visualize yourself at your next income level and breathe through that discomfort. And I'm going to talk about it later on in the podcast, but I've been doing a lot of research and stuff into breath work recently, and I've been listening to some other podcasts and stuff on it, and it's really, really insightful how that can really, really calm us down. But I'll run a podcast on it at a later stage. I know for me, like the first time that I done red light sauna and then I did breath work after it, like I actually felt really calm. And I find myself now, like sometimes like I'll come back like from a few days away working in Dublin where, you're in a big city, there's a lot going on. The minute I get in, it doesn't even matter how late it is at night, I'll take my dog for a walk and I'll go down like a country road, and it just makes me feel really calm just being out in nature. But what I'm actually doing is I'm resetting my nervous system, not just my mind. And you need to be intentional with this kind of stuff. A few practical tools to help you. There's 5 practices I use that like pretty much changed everything for me. So the first one is a daily grounding ritual. So like that's just bare feet on the grass, and I breathe in, like I normally do like box breathing, which is 4 in, hold for 4, out for 4, breathe for 4. And I'm sure my neighbours think I'm crazy, like me standing at like at 6 o'clock in the morning in my bare feet. But I do that relentlessly every time I'm at home. If I'm away, I said I bought this grounding mat, so I use that instead, because staying in hotels and stuff, it's not always possible to get like real grass. The other thing that I do is this self-talk for safety. So in my head I go like, it's safe to be seen, it's it's safe to have money, these things are all okay. So it's a lot of how you talk to yourself. The third thing I do then is tracking my wins. Your nervous system loves proof of your wins, so I track those and I recognize those, and I see the progress. The other thing I do is celebrate the discomfort. That sick feeling that you get in your stomach, that's your nervous system actually expanding, so it's actually a good thing. And then the other thing is like community regulation. Like your nervous system will co-regulate. So what that means is like be around wealth-minded people. You're the average of the 5 people that you hang out with the most. So I'm very mindful of who I'm spending my time with, and are those people draining my energy, because that will dysregulate my nervous system. So before I wrap up, I want you to know, if you've ever felt like you're too emotional or you're too tired or you're not built for success, it's not true. You're just dysregulated. And just remember, regulation is a skill. So just like sales is a skill, just like mindset, just like muscle, the first part about it is like just becoming aware of the part that it plays. The next time that your income dips, ask yourself, does my nervous system feel safe at this level? And if not, don't hustle harder, just soften, slow down, regulate yourself, learn proper breath work, and then that's going to help you to rise, because your nervous system is actually deciding how much you make, but you get to train it to say yes to more. So hopefully there's some little nuggets in here today that you can take away, so that you can start putting some practices in place to help you regulate your nervous system. So just a quick one before you go. Over 100 million people listen to podcasts on a daily basis. And while so many come looking for personal growth, most never actually hit follow. So if anything in this episode helped you to see things differently, to feel a bit stronger, or just breathe easier, then do me a massive favor and hit follow right here where you're listening. This means that you'll never miss an episode that might be exactly what you need to hear that day. And most importantly, the more this podcast grows, the more I can keep sharing real value and even open the door to bringing in incredible guests to support your journey. So thanks again for being here, and I'll see you in the next episode. And that's my words of wisdom for today's episode of Wow. I hope this gave you something to think about, because remember, your mindset shapes your reality. The way you choose to think today will impact what you create tomorrow. If you love this episode, let me know. Share it, tag me, or send me a message. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you haven't already, hit that follow or subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Catch you next time.